You are here for a reason, and that reason is not random. There is something important about this exact moment. At first, it may seem like an ordinary experience, but there is a deeper feeling that your presence here matters. You did not arrive at this point by chance. The timing of finding these words, hearing this message, or feeling drawn to this moment carries a meaning that may not be clear right away. If you continue without paying attention, you could miss something valuable that this moment is trying to reveal to you. There is an energy around this experience that feels purposeful. It is almost as though life carefully placed a message before you, knowing that someday you would be ready to receive it. As this begins to unfold, something slowly starts shifting inside your perspective. What once seemed random begins to feel meaningful. What once felt confusing begins to make more sense. The uncertainty slowly turns into curiosity, and that curiosity grows into a quiet feeling of understanding. There is a person connected to your energy in a very strong way. This person thinks about you far more often than you realize. Their thoughts are not occasional or passing, they are steady. They return to thoughts of you throughout the day, even while handling other responsibilities. Somehow, your presence continues to appear in their mind. You enter their thoughts during simple moments and during quiet times when everything around them becomes calm. When the day slows down and distractions begin to disappear, they often find themselves thinking about you. Their feelings are deep and layered. Sometimes, their thoughts about you feel emotional. Other times, they feel very personal. At certain moments, there is even a sense of spiritual connection. At other moments, there is a strong physical attraction. What they feel cannot be placed into just one category because it exists on many different levels at the same time. They are attracted to your appearance, but that is only one piece of what captures their attention. What truly stays with them goes far beyond the way you look. They notice your personality. They notice your energy. They notice the way you move through life and connect with others. There is something about your presence that leaves a lasting impact on them. The way you communicate stands out. The way you handle challenges stands out. The way you treat people stands out. Your kindness, your honesty, and your natural warmth create an impression they cannot easily forget. They see you as someone genuine. They do not see you as someone who hides behind masks or pretends to be someone else. Instead, they see a person who shows up as their true self. In a world where many people seem guarded or focused on appearances, your sincerity feels refreshing to them. They see you as sweet. They see you as caring. They see you as real. None of these qualities feel forced in their eyes. They feel natural. They feel sincere. They feel like a true reflection of who you are. And that authenticity is one of the biggest reasons their feelings continue growing. Instead of fading with time, their thoughts about you remain present. The connection stays alive within them because it is rooted in something deeper than surface-level attraction. There is also a feeling inside this connection that they struggle to explain. From the beginning, something inside them suggested that meeting you was not simply a coincidence. They may never openly admit this, not because the feeling is false, but because they tend to protect the deepest parts of their inner world. This is someone who experiences emotions very strongly. When they care about someone, they care deeply. When they feel connected, they feel it intensely. The challenge is not feeling emotions. The challenge is expressing them. Over the years, they have learned to be careful with vulnerability. They have gone through situations where opening up too soon led to disappointment. There have been moments when they revealed their true feelings only to discover that the other person did not understand them or value their honesty. Some experiences left emotional wounds. Some experiences taught difficult lessons. Those lessons changed how they approach relationships. Because of what they have lived through, they often become cautious when emotions begin growing. They pay close attention. They observe. They think carefully before revealing what is happening inside them. Even when their feelings are real, they do not always show the full depth of those emotions. Part of them wants to move closer. Part of them wants to speak openly. Part of them wants to stop hiding what they feel. But another part remembers the past. That part remembers what happened when they became emotionally attached too quickly. That part remembers disappointment. That part remembers imbalance. That part remembers feeling vulnerable. As a result, they often find themselves caught between desire and caution. They want connection, but they also want protection. They want closeness, but they also want security. This creates an inner struggle that continues beneath the surface. The interest they feel toward you is genuine. The emotional connection they feel is genuine. The attraction they feel is genuine, yet every feeling passes through a filter of caution before it reaches the outside world. They are constantly deciding how much to reveal and how much to keep private. This is not because they are indifferent. It is not because they do not care. In many ways, it is because they care so deeply that they become careful. You remain someone they think about often. You remain someone who occupies space in their mind, even when they are not trying to think about you. There is something about you that stayed with them, something that never completely left. The impression you made was not temporary. It settled into their awareness and became part of the way they understand connection itself. Whether they fully understand it or not, they recognize that you are different. You are not just another person they happen to meet. You are someone who left a mark, someone who created an emotional impact, someone who continues to stand out in ways they cannot easily explain. Because of this, the connection creates a quiet tension inside them. Their past experiences still influence how they approach relationships. At one point in their life, they were much more open. They expressed feelings freely. They became attached quickly. They shared their emotions without hesitation. When they felt something, they showed it. When they cared, they made it clear. When they connected with someone, they invested themselves completely. But life taught them difficult lessons. There were times when that openness was not returned. There were times when their honesty was misunderstood. There were times when their vulnerability became a source of pain instead of connection. After enough experiences like that, they began changing the way they protected their heart. The openness that once felt natural started feeling risky. The emotional freedom they once enjoyed became something they approached more carefully. Over time, they developed stronger boundaries. They learned to slow down. They learned to observe before reacting. They learned to protect their emotional energy. This transformation did not happen because they stopped feeling deeply. It happened because they felt deeply and understood the consequences of becoming emotionally overwhelmed. In the past, they experienced emotional highs that felt exciting and full of hope. But those highs were sometimes followed by painful lows. Those experiences taught them that intensity alone does not create stability. As a result, they became more intentional, more thoughtful, more balanced, and more aware of how quickly emotions can grow. Today they approach relationships differently. They no longer trust emotional speed the way they once did. They believe meaningful connections deserve patience. They believe trust should grow naturally. They believe emotions become stronger when they are built on a solid foundation. Sometimes this makes them appear distant. Sometimes it makes them seem hard to understand. Sometimes it gives the impression that they are keeping something inside. But the reality is much more complex. On the inside, they are not emotionally distant. They are simply trying to manage their emotions. They are working hard to keep themselves balanced. They are trying not to repeat the same old habits. They are trying to protect both themselves and the bond you share. Even so, something meaningful is slowly beginning to change. They are not pushing you away. They are not turning their back on the chance for something meaningful. Instead, they are growing. They are adjusting. They are realizing that emotional safety does not always require complete silence. They are beginning to see that there is a real difference between being careful and being emotionally unavailable. There is a place in between, a place where honesty and caution can exist side by side, a place where being vulnerable no longer feels like a danger. As this understanding becomes stronger, their behavior slowly begins to change. At first, those changes may not seem dramatic. In fact, they may look very small, but they carry real meaning. Small actions often reveal the biggest transformations taking place beneath the surface. You may notice them becoming more comfortable reaching out. You may notice them starting conversations more frequently. You may notice them creating more chances to remain connected. A simple text may appear without warning. A casual message may arrive during an ordinary afternoon. A conversation that once ended quickly may now continue a little longer. They may quietly look for reasons to remain part of your daily life. They may suggest spending time together in ways that feel easy and natural. Nothing will seem forced. Nothing will feel hurried. Everything will develop in its own natural way. That is because their feelings are not fading away. They are becoming stronger, quietly, steadily, gradually, consistently. As trust keeps growing, their actions begin matching what they have been feeling inside for a long time. The distance between what they feel and what they express slowly becomes smaller. The emotional walls they once believed were necessary begin coming down one piece at a time. They start realizing that hiding their emotions does not truly keep them safe. It simply delays closeness. It only postpones the chance for something meaningful to grow. So they begin taking careful steps forward, not careless steps, not rushed decisions, thoughtful steps, balanced steps. Steps that allow them to stay true to who they are, while making room for something deeper to develop. Little by little, they become more comfortable showing what has been there from the very beginning. The interest, the curiosity, the attraction, the emotional bond, the admiration, all of it slowly begins finding its place in the open. Not through dramatic actions, not through emotional speeches, but through consistency, through presence, through honest effort. Because beneath every layer of caution, every moment of uncertainty, and every attempt to remain emotionally balanced, one truth never changes. You continue to matter deeply to them. You continue to hold a place within their thoughts. You continue to awaken emotions they cannot easily set aside. And as time continues moving forward, the connection slowly finds space to breathe. The fear becomes less powerful. The trust becomes much stronger. The uncertainty slowly turns into clarity. What once stayed hidden begins revealing itself through actions, choices, and quiet moments filled with sincerity. As that process continues, they become more willing to meet this connection where it truly belongs, not only inside their mind, not only inside their imagination, but in real life. One step at a time, one moment at a time, one sincere action at a time. Because some connections leave a mark that never completely fades. Some people remain in your thoughts long after the first encounter. Some meetings continue becoming more meaningful instead of disappearing into memory. And for this person, the connection they share with you has become one of those rare experiences. A connection that continues living within them. A connection that keeps growing over time. A connection that quietly reminds them that meaningful relationships are not always immediate, but they are often worth every moment of patience it takes to truly understand them. As they continue learning how to balance caution with openness, they move closer to expressing what has been living inside their heart for much longer than anyone knows, slowly, honestly, naturally, in a way that feels completely genuine. And that is where everything slowly begins opening up. The energy between both of you starts moving toward greater balance, deeper understanding, and a more peaceful rhythm. What once felt uncertain begins feeling more secure. What once seemed difficult to understand becomes much easier to recognize. As this change continues unfolding, something important becomes clear about this person. They are not naturally inactive. Deep inside, they are someone who enjoys taking action when they feel confident in the direction they are choosing. They are someone who enjoys making progress. They are someone who prefers moving ahead instead of standing still. Their natural tendency is not to remain frozen forever or pretend that their feelings do not exist. The reason they sometimes appear inactive has very little to do with lacking interest. It has much more to do with the right timing. It has everything to do with trust. It has to do with emotional readiness. They like feeling certain before making important decisions. They prefer understanding their emotions before acting on them. They want to know exactly where they stand inside themselves before creating change in the outside world. Because of this, there eventually comes a moment when endless thinking slowly begins turning into meaningful action. The feelings that have quietly existed beneath the surface for so long no longer remain hidden only inside their thoughts. Those emotions begin finding practical ways to express themselves. This is where real movement starts becoming visible. You may notice them becoming more active. You may notice them contacting you more often. You may notice them looking for chances to create interaction instead of waiting for life to create those moments for them. Their communication begins carrying greater purpose. Instead of conversations staying limited to casual words, there is now more intention behind everything they say. They begin searching for opportunities to spend time together. They begin searching for ways to remain connected. They begin searching for opportunities to build shared memories. A simple conversation may naturally grow into actual plans. A casual message may slowly become a heartfelt invitation. A short interaction may develop into a longer conversation that feels more personal, more comfortable, and more meaningful. They may begin asking when you are free. They may become interested in learning more about your schedule. They may quietly try to arrange their plans around yours. Their attention slowly shifts toward creating real experiences instead of simply imagining what those experiences might be. This is the energy of someone moving from quiet observation into active participation. Instead of watching the connection from far away, they begin stepping closer to it. Instead of only wondering what could happen, they begin creating opportunities for something real to happen. At the center of this change is a growing desire for shared effort. There is a stronger understanding that meaningful relationships are built together. They recognize that one person cannot carry the emotional weight of a relationship alone. There has to be balance. There has to be mutual effort. There has to be a genuine willingness from both people to offer energy, attention, kindness, and care. As this realization grows stronger, they become more interested in building something meaningful alongside you, instead of simply imagining what might someday be possible. At the same time, it is important to understand the natural rhythm of their personality. Even when they care deeply, they rarely move too quickly. Even when they feel excited, they still prefer taking steady steps. Their process includes reflection. Their process includes adjustment. Their process includes making sure they feel emotionally secure before taking larger steps forward. Because of this, progress may sometimes seem slower than expected. The connection may not unfold in dramatic ways. It may not grow through sudden confessions or impulsive choices. Instead, it grows piece by piece, moment by moment, decision by decision. The pace may be steady and measured, but the direction continues moving forward. And that difference is what truly matters. Slow progress is still progress. Careful steps are still steps forward. What matters most is not how fast someone moves, but how consistently they keep moving. As they continue working through their emotions, they slowly become less controlled by old fears and painful memories. The emotional burden they once carried begins to feel lighter. The experiences that once caused them to hesitate gradually lose some of their influence. This does not happen all at once. It happens through reflection. It happens through personal growth. It happens through discovering healthier ways to understand themselves. As someone becomes less weighed down by unresolved emotions, they naturally become more present. They become more emotionally available. They become more open to meaningful connection. They become more willing to experience life as it is today, instead of seeing everything through the lens of past pain. Beneath all of this, there is an even deeper truth. People often move carefully after they have been hurt. Not because they have no feelings, not because they are not interested, but because they are trying to avoid repeating painful experiences. They hope for different results. They hope for healthier relationships. They hope for greater emotional peace. As they learn from the past without allowing it to control their future, their ability to connect freely continues to grow. Real change never comes through shortcuts. It does not come from promises alone. It comes from emotional maturity. It comes from the decisions people make every single day. It comes from choosing to approach life differently than they did before. That is why meaningful transformation usually happens little by little. At first, the signs are often quiet. More communication, more consistency, more effort, more willingness to participate, more willingness to be present. These are the signals that reveal genuine commitment. When someone truly cares, their actions begin reflecting those feelings. Not perfectly, not every single day, but consistently enough that real change becomes visible over time. This is where their action-oriented side becomes much easier to recognize. They stop keeping the connection limited to thoughts and emotions. They begin making space for it within their everyday life. They make time for it. They create opportunities for it. They become more intentional about protecting and growing it. Instead of only responding when chances appear, they begin creating those chances themselves. Instead of waiting on the sidelines, they begin participating. Instead of remaining trapped in endless hesitation, they begin choosing involvement. As this takes place, the connection between the two of you slowly becomes more stable. The uncertainty gradually begins fading. The relationship feels more grounded. The emotional energy becomes easier to understand. There is still a need for patience. There is still a need for understanding. There is still a need to allow everything to unfold naturally. But now there is movement. The connection is no longer standing still. It is moving ahead. It is growing. It is developing. It is finding a clearer direction. Over time, this becomes one of the strongest signs that something meaningful has changed. Action slowly replaces hesitation. Engagement slowly replaces silence. Consistency slowly replaces avoidance. These changes reveal far more than words ever could, because true intentions are usually shown through behavior. Genuine interest becomes visible through consistent effort. Real connection becomes visible through active participation. As this process continues, another important shift begins taking place beneath the surface. A stronger sense of balance starts developing inside them. It does not happen suddenly. It happens quietly. It happens gradually. It is the result of many small emotional adjustments taking place over time. Something that once felt tight begins relaxing. Something that once felt unstable begins finding balance. Something that once felt emotionally confusing slowly becomes easier to understand. Earlier in this connection, there may have been an ongoing cycle of pushing away and pulling closer. One moment they felt close to you, and the next moment they felt uncertain. One moment they wanted connection, and the next moment they wanted to withdraw. This pattern created emotional pressure. It created inner conflict. It created uncertainty about what direction to take. But little by little, that conflict begins losing its strength. Their emotional energy becomes more organized. Instead of reacting to every emotion immediately, they begin observing those emotions with greater awareness. They begin understanding themselves more deeply. They begin recognizing the difference between fear and reality. They begin seeing which worries belong to the present and which ones are simply echoes from old experiences. As emotional clarity grows, mental noise slowly fades. The overthinking that once controlled their perspective becomes less powerful. The endless questions begin slowing down. Fear no longer controls every decision. Imagined outcomes lose much of their influence. In their place comes greater awareness, deeper understanding, and stronger emotional stability. This allows them to view the connection with much greater clarity. They stop looking at everything through the lens of previous disappointments. They stop assuming that every meaningful relationship will end exactly the way past relationships did. Instead, they begin paying attention to what is actually happening in the present moment. That change transforms everything. Because when fear loses its power, authenticity finally has room to grow. When anxiety begins decreasing, presence naturally increases. When emotional clarity becomes stronger, healthier decisions become possible. As a result, their behavior begins changing naturally. They become more comfortable staying emotionally present. They become more comfortable with closeness. They become more comfortable allowing meaningful experiences to exist without immediately questioning every feeling. The hesitation does not disappear overnight, but it no longer controls every choice they make. Their ability to stay engaged becomes stronger. Their willingness to remain connected becomes more dependable. Their comfort with vulnerability slowly continues expanding. This creates space for deeper conversations. Communication begins flowing with greater ease. Their words become more direct. Their intentions become easier to recognize. The emotional uncertainty that once surrounded the connection slowly begins disappearing. Instead of relying only on subtle hints, they begin expressing themselves more openly. At first, these expressions may still be careful. They may still be thoughtful. They may still reflect their naturally cautious personality, but they also carry greater honesty, stronger clarity, and growing confidence. What was once hidden gradually begins expressing itself through conversations, actions, and meaningful gestures. At an even deeper level, something significant is taking place within them. Different parts of their emotional world begin working together instead of pulling in opposite directions. The part that longs for connection, the part that fears vulnerability, the part that carries hope, the part that wants protection. Instead of constantly competing, these parts slowly begin finding harmony. This creates emotional stability. The desire for connection no longer feels dangerous. The need for self-protection no longer controls every decision. A healthier balance begins taking shape. From that place, their energy naturally moves forward. Not rushed movement, not reckless movement, steady movement, intentional movement, purposeful movement. They become more consistent. They follow through more often. They remain engaged for longer periods. They become less likely to disappear whenever emotions begin feeling important. Their presence becomes more dependable. Their effort becomes easier to recognize. At the same time, the emotional importance of the connection continues growing. What started as simple interest slowly develops into something much deeper. What began as curiosity becomes something more meaningful. There is an increasing awareness that this connection truly matters. Even if they cannot completely explain why, they can feel its importance. They recognize its influence. They recognize its impact. They recognize that it has become an important part of their emotional world. Because of this, thoughts about the future naturally begin appearing, not necessarily as immediate plans, not necessarily as final decisions, but as possibilities, as quiet considerations, as gentle ideas forming in the background. Concepts such as stability, trust, partnership, emotional safety, and growing together begin entering their awareness. The connection starts feeling less like a temporary experience and more like something that could hold lasting value. Even then, growth continues to be a process. Old emotional habits do not disappear instantly. Past disappointments do not vanish overnight. Memories remain. Lessons remain. Protective instincts remain. These influences continue working quietly beneath the surface. That is why progress may not always follow a perfectly straight path. There may still be moments of caution. There may still be moments of thoughtful reflection.